Welcome to the Dynasty Vipers Vipercast, where all things football are injected right to your veins, with your hosts, Matt Donnelly, Calvin Shoemake, and Jeff Mueller.
What is up, and welcome to the Dynasty Vipers Team Spotlight Series. We are going through every team, 32 teams, and talking about their offseason, talking about the history as a team. And so we've been doing that because we want to make sure that we understand the teams that these rookies and all the free agency and all that are going to find themselves in. So to do that, we've invited some really smart football people to join us, and particularly in this one, despite their choice of being Jets fans, I consider them smart football people. So right here to my, let's see, where is it? This side, we've got Larry. Hey, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourselves, tell everybody where we can find you, what you're working on in the offseason, and just kind of what you got going on.
All right, here, FF Larry Monkey on Twitter, and you can catch me hosting the Dynasty Hot Sauce podcast with my co-host, Justin Rogers. Find him at RunDFF. And at Dynasty Hot Sauce. So once a week we drop an episode, and you can catch us all over Twitter. And I'm so excited to talk about the Jets. I'm ready, baby. I'm ready. Let's do this. Let's do it.
Thank you so much for joining. And of course, we've got to bring in the man, the myth, the legend, Howard. Why don't you tell everybody who you are and where everybody can find you?
First off, thanks so much for having me. And Larry, it's a tough act to follow, man. You can say this, that if you're a Jets fan, this is really how you're supposed to start everything off. Every day starts off like that, wondering what you're doing. You can find me all over the fantasyalarm.com. You can find me over at wageralarm.com. I also co-host the Fantasy Alarm Show on SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio with Jim Bowden, Monday through Friday, 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern. And then I do an all-sports podcast called Ante Up with Adam Ronis. You can find that at iTunes and Spotify. And on Twitter, I'm at RotoBuzzGuy. So give me a follow. Why not?
Some fandoms run deeper than others, and some are forged in through heartbreak. And my oldest son only knows of the Saints through the most recent terrible bad luck Minnesota Miracle, the no defensive interference penalty, the push off by Kyle Rudolph. That's the heartbreak in the playoffs is how he knows. And certainly as a Jets fan, you've experienced your fair share of that. What's it been like growing up as a Jets fan? Howard, I'll toss it right back to you. Just growing up as a Jets fan, or what's your history with the team?
It's been a tough one. It really has been. I'm not going to lie. A lot of friends of mine, obvious Giants fans, went the other way because of where my dad grew up in Kew Gardens in Queens, New York. So, he was a Jets fan over there. He, watched them when they were the Titans. And so I just kind of, I guess it was yet another annoying, lousy family trait passed down to me from one generation to another, because, I can remember from a very young age that it was all about the Jets on Sunday, and it was all about very quiet Sunday night dinners with nobody talking and a lot of anger.
Very cool. Larry, how about you?
I don't even know. I don't even know how it happened, man. I really don't. It's, I don't know. I've been a Jets fan for more than 40 years now. And I don't know. It was just cool, green and white growing up. You had these bomber jackets back in the day you used to roll into school with your favorite team. And, Wesley Walker, Al Toon, Freeman McNeil, those guys always appealed. That's who I was into, man. That's what I kind of flocked towards. So, that's the path you chose. I don't even know where my life would be if I chose a different team. I don't even know how to even conceptualize that.
Fast forward to Larry, like on a yacht in the south of France right now.
Yes.
It's like women and stacks of money and stuff
Dude,
like that.
totally.
I don't know, Larry. Where would you be if you rooted for another team?
Dude, I follow this guy named Tom Waterhouse on Twitter. I don't know if anyone's following. He's like some DFS guy in Australia, and every video he's got a half a dozen like bikini clad women, and he's like water skiing, and yeah, that's where I would probably be if I wasn't a Jets fan.
Well, so what's that process like? I mean, here in New Orleans, there's one team, right? Like, what's it like? You've got two teams right there. Like, was there ever a choice, or like when your kids were growing up, did they want to be Giants fans? Like, what's that like growing up there with two teams right there next to each other? Either one.
I mean, I'm in Jersey. I was born in the Bronx, and I've spent most of my life in New Jersey. You go a little bit further down south, and it turns into Philly fans. So it's almost like there aren't college football is not as big here in the Northeast because there's so many pro sports. So it's Jets, Giants, or Eagles, and then now the Bills are good, so those fans are going to be coming out of the woodwork if they haven't already. But yeah, I mean Jets and Giants. It's always been Jets and Giants, and I don't know. I just lean Jets. I hate I'm a Jets fan that hates the Giants. I'm a Yankees fan in the baseball world but I don't care about the Mets. The Mets are okay. I lived in Queens for a few years. So I've been in plenty of Mets games, but I don't mind the Mets, but I'm a Jets fan that hates the Giants. I don't know if that has to do with all the winning they've been doing, and, you got to deal with that. And Eli Manning's such a, he's a P word. I mean, I'm trying to be nice here. I don't know, man. I don't know. Maybe that's got something to do with it. I mean, I love that they have Daniel Jones as their quarterback now because he's just awful. He's like Dave Brown, he's like those, back those days. That's how I see it. But yeah, we're not here to talk about them. But yeah, man, I don't know. Jets, Giants.
Sure.
I have plenty of Giants fans. I have my Jets fans. And you don't tend to wear a lot of Jets gear that often when you're a Jets fan because they're we got to deal with this roller coaster.
So 2020. No, go ahead, Howard.
I was gonna say it's funny. I'm Yankees fan, Jets fan also. I don't mind the Giants actually, and I hate the Mets. Yeah. And I hate because I hate Mets fans. It's that inferiority complex that Mets fans always have. It's always like the Yankees. Like they'll go out of their way to insult Yankees and Yankees fans. Like that's what Mets fans are like. Giants fans, they're winning, whatever. But Jets fans, we're not like Giants fans. You're terrible. Like we don't behave like that. So I think that's one of the interesting dichotomies because it's usually Yankees, Giants, and Jets, Mets fans. So Larry, a fellow Yankee Jets fan there. Yeah. It's entertaining to say the least, but man, you should focus your hatred much more on Mets fans than on the Giants now. I'm telling you.
You know what's also interesting when you talk about that? I went to a Pittsburgh Jets game with my brother-in-law a few years back. Ryan Fitzpatrick was the quarterback. And it was just the way that the Steelers fans just carry themselves, just like the confidence, the arrogance, forget about confidence, the arrogance, walking around like there's something else. And I'm, here I am in my Jets jersey walking down the friggin' hotel hallway like this loser,
Looking for a coat so you can cover up a little bit.
God. It was such a boring game too. I got crushed. Anyway.
So I want to transition to 2020, and I want to ask it like this. Howard, is Adam Gase the worst coach in the history of the NFL?
Horrible. Like, absolutely horrible. Like, seriously, this guy got the reputation for being a quarterback guru and this great offensive mind because he made the decision to let Peyton Manning run the offense in Denver. Like, that's how Gase came about. And you watch what happened in Miami, and it was terrible. And you watch what's gone on with the Jets. The players don't respect him. The assistant coaches don't respect him. He runs his system the way he runs it. He won't bend towards anything else. And he gets nothing out of his players. I mean, it was terrible. But, meanwhile, everybody this year, and, this is like, they were totally great up until they won their first game, like a bunch of morons like that. Just, and that's where I fault Gase. But, one of the things that, you weren't going to do, you weren't going to fire him mid-season because you're either going to promote one of his flunkies and give that guy some, experience, or you're going to have to go outside the organization and set somebody up as a patsy, because there's no way that you're going to do anything good with that team. You want to lose. So, is Gase the worst ever? Yes, because he actually won a game this year, and, he let his players, play their game and win. He didn't self-sabotage it or anything like that. So bad for the organization in more ways than one.
Yeah, his last little middle finger to the organization was winning those games at the very end, no doubt. Larry, I guess, you're shaking your head, or is that a disagreement, or?
Oh, no. I mean, we just, as Jets fans, we've had the misfortune of having two of the worst coaches probably in the history of football, with Rich Kotite back 25, 30 years ago. So
the best with that is that we fired Pete Carroll for going 0-6 that year to hire Rich Kotite, who went 0-8 with his final 8 games with the Eagles that season. Wow. Oh, see, that's being a Jet fan.
Yeah, I mean, and I when I hear other fans of teams complain, I don't know, maybe the Lions fan has a maybe they can speak, but I don't know, no one else can complain. I mean, I feel sorry about your Saints, but come on now.
Yeah.
Didn't they make the playoffs this year?
Before Peyton and before Breeze, yes, I feel like we were in a very similar, we weren't successful enough to feel better about our team. We just wore bags over our head, and there was nothing to. No good old days to root for. That happened over the last 15 years at least. But
yeah, there was no originality in Gase's play calling. It was just the same thing over and over again. His choice of running Frank Gore into the ground, it didn't make any sense. Ty Johnson, they peeled him off the scrap heap. He had a bit of success with Detroit, but. God, he was just running. He was just using Frank. He was keeping it Herndon to block the whole season. I don't know. The decision making didn't really make a lot of sense. And I know Sam was banged up. He's been banged up his whole career. I don't know if we're going to get into that, but
yeah, of course. And actually, speaking of banged up, that's a really good segue, because I wanted to say, as I was digging through this, I don't think I remembered how many injuries that the Jets dealt with. I mean, there was a lot on the offensive side of the ball, especially, and Darnold was hurt. A lot of the wide receivers were hurt. 32nd in points, 32nd in yards for. That's never going to be good, obviously. But I don't think you look at the skill positions and think this is a team that doesn't have anything to work on. I don't think Justin Jefferson gets 1,400 yards or whatever it was if he's playing for this Jets team last year. You've got some young talent. You got some things. And you bring in a coach that seems like he is, set up pretty well. So let's talk about Robert Saleh and Matt LaFleur, the offensive coordinator. What do you think now as you turn the page from Gase? I mean, there's only one way to go from there. But Howard, let me ask you, what's your confidence level in what they're going to be able to bring to the table?
Listen, I think they need so many different parts. They need so many different pieces. They need a running back. They need to listen. I've said this over and over again. If they trade for Deshaun Watson, right, and give up all that draft capital, listen, he's a game changer. No doubt about it. He's a game changer in the prime of his life, too. He's 25 years old, and there's the mileage on him is not big. And you see what he does with Houston and their crap offensive line in front of him. And he's a playmaker. He's a gamer. So, for the Jets to make that move would be absolutely phenomenal. If not, then I want to keep Sam Darnold. Larry's right. He has dealt with injuries, but he's also dealt with lousy coaching, horrible systems. So you bring in, Robert Saleh, and you're thinking, okay, well, if him and LaFleur are going to bring that Kyle Shanahan type system, there's going to be a good ground game there. They're going to concentrate on, rolling out Sam Darnold instead of trying to just make him sit there as a pocket passer. There's going to be a lot of movement. Then, okay, fine. But we just don't have the personnel for that right now. So, I think the system being implemented will be great. And I think that we can rebuild either through draft picks and surround Darnold, or make the trade and then, invest in all of that, money that we're under the cap, and get some weaponry for Deshaun Watson. So I think that's kind of, we'll see the turnaround. We'll see marked improvement, but we're certainly not going to go to the playoffs this year.
Yep. Larry, jump in. What do you think about the new coaching staff?
I love the new coaching staff. It seems like the polar opposite of the last coaching staff. They seem to be picking guys off that are on the that are ascending. There's no, they're coming from a good offensive system. There's things. There's a lot of draft capital involved. I mean, Joe Douglas, the GM of the Jets, has talked about how he wants to build through the draft. These successful organizations in this day and age, with the salary cap, can create a robust lineup with that draft capital. So there are different ways you could play this. I mean, Darnold. He's a fathead. He's behind me on the wall right now. So I'm a Sam Darnold fan. You can keep him there. If you want to talk about being a Jets fan in the grand scheme of things, and I know everyone's different ages and they have different experiences with the Jets, you can't feel optimistic more than you can right now. I know it's the offseason, and I joked earlier that the offseason is when that's the greatest part of being a Jets fan is the offseason, because it's all this like, oh yeah, man, they could do this and they could do that. But now they could trade this pick. This second overall pick, and picks just gain in more value the closer they get to the draft. So this second overall pick is just going to get more expensive and more expensive. So you could do a few things with it. You can keep Darnold, who you have to make a decision on before the draft, before that 5th-year option kicks in, which I believe is May 3rd, and the draft is the end of April. So we're going to know what direction this team's going to go in within the next 6 weeks. So you keep Sam. You can trade that pick for a like a RG3 haul or something like that. And you already have a ton of picks. So now you're doing what Joe said he wanted to do: build through the draft and get all that draft capital and build the team organically that way. Or you can trade Sam, take one of these quarterbacks, and this quarterback class is really good. Because here's the thing, there's a lot of politics involved too. So you have Sam Darnold throws a pick in the first quarter of week 1, and everyone's just going to be going berserk. It pained me to see Jets Twitter and the Jets fans up here in the Northeast just turn on Sam by like week 8. We've just talked about all the issues that this team has had. I don't really care what direction they go in, because number one, they're the Jets. So, it's most likely not going to end well, but there are some big time options here. And of course you have that, I don't think Watson is realistic, because I don't think he really wants to come here. I think he's just trying to play, who the hell knows? But they do have the draft capital to pick him up. He's only making $10 million in 2021. Then his salary jumps up to $35 million 2022, and he's right around that $30 million threshold annually, which isn't terrible for a quarterback. But I don't know, man. There's a lot of good things that could happen right now. It's a good time to be a Jets fan outside of that normal offseason stuff. They have a lot of they got the coaching staff. They have a potential new franchise quarterback that they could draft, or the potential that they had in Sam. But I don't know if they're going to stick with Sam just because of the politics involved.
Let's talk about the quarterback position. And Howard, I'll phrase it to you this way: like, if you had to bet an amount of money that meant something to you, that mattered to you, who's taking the first snap under center in the first game of 2021?
Sam Darnold. Listen, who knows what happens with Deshaun Watson, but I'll say this: if it's not Deshaun Watson, I don't want Fields or, any one of these other guys. You know why? Give me Darnold, who's been seasoned in the NFL for a little bit. He's got he's got some experience. He's got games under his belt. All right. Give him an opportunity in an offense that might actually really work for him. And I think the Jets know that. the politics aside, yeah, listen, if the Jets get rid of Sam Darnold and they go with one of these kids, let's say they get Fields, and Fields takes the first snap and he throws a pick immediately. Like, Jets fans are going to be like, oh, bring back Darnold. Why? You never should have gotten rid of Darnold. What's wrong with you?
Well, that's what Sam did on his first throw, right?
Yes. I mean, it's like, you can't win regardless. So if you're going to rebuild and you're going to do that, I'd rather do it with a guy who's got a little bit of seasoning under his belt as an NFL QB, right, to learn the new system and to make that happen. I think that's the direction the Jets should go if they don't get Watson. That's where I'm at with that. So I'll bet Sam Darnold takes that first snap under center.
And real quick, I'll say Zach Wilson takes that snap. And I'm going to say this. We have Joe Douglas did not draft Sam Darnold. He has no allegiance to Sam other than that he promised his mom he was going to hook him up with an offensive line, which he's working on. Currently, maybe he's still working on that promise. Who knows? But brand new coach, brand new GM. I think if they want a complete reset, they have all of this draft capital. They're just building. The quarterback money will reset. They can get perhaps a second round pick for Sam. I'd love to see him go for a late first. He's only played 20% or he's missed 20% of his career so far with injury. So he hasn't really been evaluated properly because, again, he has had no help. He's had no offensive line. And he's just been thrown to the wolves every day. And if you put anybody out there, they're just gonna get hurt like Sam did. Because
he's had Adam Gase as his offense coordinator, which we saw Ryan Tannehill get better when he got rid of him. Plus, it's a Shanahan system, which does seem to me like I think what you guys are saying. If he does end up being the one to take that snap, then that means that you spent your two of your first round picks probably helping him either through the offensive line or through offensive weapons, whatever it is. And I think that could be really good for him. I guess the question is, like you said, Larry, there's a lot of smoke right now to Zach Wilson. And I don't know if that, you never know at this time. Are they trying to get someone to trade up into that spot because they're hearing his name and want somebody to come make them an offer so they can trade back? Do you think that might be what's happening?
I think that Joe Douglas knows what he's doing from his experience in Baltimore and Philadelphia, and he knows how to play the game. The Jets they've never been legit since probably Parcells, and I think Joe Douglas brings a little bit of legitimacy with him. And Robert Saleh has such a Robert Saleh should have been hired last year as a head coach. The only reason he wasn't is because the Niners went far in the playoffs. Or the
Super Bowl.
They went to the Super Bowl. So, they got a stud coach, and he's bringing that young, LaFleur, Shanahan, that new type of where the NFL is going, I guess, if you want to say it. But I don't know. I think Darnold fits that system. Zach Wilson also fits that system. I mean, it's probably personal preference. If they can get somebody, like I said, that lion's share of picks and just build around Sam, I'd love for Sam to stay. That would be great. I had no problem with that. I would love to not have to peel this off my fucking wall. Oops, my wall. But yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, and I think that is well said, and I think that's probably the biggest decision that they've got to make right there. Is you can't do anything else to make another move unless you kind of know what you're going to do at quarterback. And it talked about fielding trade inquiries for Darnold, and maybe a lot of smoke, but maybe there's some fire to that too. The one thing I know is whoever is under center, they've got $82 million worth of cap room that they've got at their fingertips right now, which is a great position to be in, because I'm pretty sure that's how much negative the Saints have is somewhere in that ballpark. I don't know how they're going to do that, but the Jets have a lot to work with. So, there are some big name free agents. There's some people out there that, could come in, but they also need to take care of their own. So there's a couple of guys, particularly Marcus May has been making a lot of noise. Howard, what are you hearing about that? Do you think he's going to be franchise tag? Do you think they are able to work something out? There was a lot of noise about his agent making a fuss on Twitter or something like that. What do you know about that situation, and maybe some of the other, the Neville Hewitt and the Brashad Perryman maybe, or Brian Poole, some of those other guys that they have that are unrestricted free agents? How many of those do you think they bring back?
I don't think that they, like a guy like May, I think, you work things out with him, you get him in there. As far as like who's worthy of a franchise tag, I guess, he's probably at the top of the list, See, it's so funny. Like I want to start over so much defensively, as far as like, yes, I want to get some help over to, Sam Darnold or whoever's going to be under center and make that work. You got to fix that secondary. You got to fix the linebacking situation. I would say they'll try and bring back, May, maybe like, I don't know, maybe like two other of the guys. It's right. You looked, you saw what it was. It was like, what was the Jets' strength defensively? It was the defensive line. It was the run stopping. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Hewitt helped that. But again, it's like there's so much I want to just revamp with this whole defense kind of a situation. So what are they going to do? The problem is that they need to find a way, if they do it defensively, that's the smart way, because really, how are you going to lure in any offensive free agents right now? Like, I don't want to bring in a guy like Aaron Jones as much as we need a running back because of the shelf life of running backs and the mileage, that he's added on already. We know it's not smart to pay the running back. None of these wide receivers want to come here. I mean, it's like, man, like nobody wants to come to the Jets. Nobody wants to come to Baltimore because, you just know you're not going to see any targets there. Like the fact that we're a lesser of two evils for wide receiver free agents. That's why so many of them are like, yeah, go ahead, franchise tag me. Like Allen Robinson will get that franchise tag. Like I wish that we could get somebody like that. So I think we can bring back a couple of guys on defense, but I think that's where we should focus the majority of our energy.
And it does seem like maybe turning the page and flipping this roster over. I mean, it was a 2-14 team, and it was a lot of Adam Gase guys, right? I mean, you do feel like Robert Sala is going to want to bring his own people in, and there are some pretty good name 49ers that are available. Like one of them that could bring a lot of good veteran leadership is Richard Sherman. Larry, what would you think about having him or some of the other guys that he's familiar with there?
Yeah, well, I mean, Sherman's a great player, and he brings that attitude. I mean, it's almost like when Ronnie Lott came to the Jets, though. It's like they're just bringing they're paying for the leadership, and he still has a little bit in the tank, and I'm sure he could teach the young guys some stuff. But yeah, man, I'm all about bringing Richard Sherman here. Anybody that, in fact, anyone that wants to come here from the Niners, I feel like Robert Saleh has such a reputation in the league, so I feel like that will attract some free agents. That, I mean, Deshaun Watson wanted to bring. That started their initial beef with Houston. I think was not the initial beef, but most recent beef was that he wanted to bring Saleh in for an interview, and they went behind his back and just hired some other guy. But I think. I don't know. I don't know what direction they're going to go in with free agency. I mean, free agency is really for the bad teams. It's just patchwork too. You're just bringing these guys that are just passing through and they're taking a contract. I mean, I'd like a Juju if we're going to talk about a wish list. He's young, done with his first contract. He has a lot in the tank, and he actually didn't he play a season with Sam Darnold as well at USC? But
yeah, maybe you're right. Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, so the Jets have 10 draft picks, and 5 of them are in the top 100. So there's a lot that they're going to have to do. And I mean, attracting free agents, you're going to have to spill your plan to these guys, because they're not going to want to come here to the Jets. What are you doing at quarterback? It's going to be fascinating the next 6 weeks because some shoes are going to drop. I mean, something's going to happen with Watson. Something's going to happen with Darnold. It's hard to predict because there's just so many options that the Jets have, so many directions that they can go in.
Yeah, no doubt. And so, I think that's that sets it up. And you mentioned there, and that they are set up really well in the draft, right? Because they've got the number 2 pick, they got the 23 pick, and then the 34 pick. I mean, you can really build a solid foundation just in that. They've got their the rest of the draft obviously too. That's why it's almost like, yeah, would you want to give up a lot of those picks for Watson? I mean, he's a difference maker, but man, you could I'm not sure you have the right foundation if you don't use those picks. I mean, there's a really good opportunity to bring in some really talented players. Howard, what do you think those first 3 picks in particular are, just like throughout the course of the draft? What would you like to see them do with those picks?
I want to see him trade him for Watson, for crying out loud. Listen, if they don't trade the picks for Watson, then yeah, I want an offensive weapon here. I want somebody solid. I don't want a QB. I want, if you can give Devontae Smith to them, then fine, then do that. I also wouldn't mind if they got another component to the offensive line, right? I mean, you got Becton, and then what else? There's really, not much into that offensive line, and you're going to need. See, here's the thing: like for Kyle Shanahan's system to work, and all the pre-snap movement that you're going to do, and all the confusion and this and that, you're going to have mobile offensive linemen. You're going to have guys who can really, know a good zone blocking scheme. And, that was the problem. We don't even know if we've got that right now in our guys. I mean, Becton, yeah, he's mobile, but I mean, he's tough, man. You might end up with just a kind of a hodgepodge offensive line for that. So maybe bringing in somebody there, can, on the other side of the field, the other tackle can kind of help out. I would rather, wide receiver, build the offensive line, spend the money on defensive guys in free agency. I would like to see that. And then, deeper into the draft, start using those picks on some running back hopefuls and see if you can't just, catch lightning in a bottle in the 4th or 5th round.
Larry, what do you think about the draft picks? What direction would you like to see your team go?
Well, I mean, you could trade for Watson, and I don't necessarily think it's going to take a ton of picks to get Watson, quite honestly, because you're not trading for the number. You're trading for the quarterback you want at number 2, which when you take a quarterback at number 2, it's your franchise quarterback. So you're trading for a franchise quarterback that you've fallen in love with. So is he Deshaun Watson? No, but maybe. Secondly, Deshaun Watson, you're trading for a franchise quarterback in potentially that 2nd pick. And then you got the Jets have too many holes. So they need to, that's the argument. The Jets are trading for, if the Jets trade for Watson, the Texans are just going to be the Jets, or the Jets are just going to be the Texans, with Deshaun Watson running for his life on a shitty team. That's the argument against Watson coming to the Jets. But I don't necessarily think it'll cost a ton because of that. That pick holds a lot of value, and the Jets have a ton of picks. I wouldn't give up the farm for Watson, though. I feel like the Jets have so many holes. They've always had so many holes. The prior 2 GMs just destroyed the franchise, and Joe Douglas has to basically build it from ground zero. And I don't necessarily, that franchise quarterback is important. But it all depends on how the Texans value that 2nd overall pick, because I think that's going to make a big difference in whether or not, a package is going to be worth it.
Let's talk about those weapons around him then, because whether it's Darnold or whether it's Deshaun Watson or whether it's Zach Wilson, whoever it is, there are some guys that come over who are really talented. And let's just start at the wide receiver spot, because Jamison Crowder is still there, and he's been a really good wide receiver. We've got Rashad Perryman, who's an unrestricted free agent, but that's a guy that I think showed some flashes. And then of course you've got Denzel Mims, who you just been a pretty good pick on, and there's a lot of people that seem to be writing him off. Howard, are you writing off Mims, or do you think he can be something with this new coaching staff?
I think he can be somebody. Listen, I'm definitely not going to write off Denzel Mims. I mean, you need there's no reason to write him off. Again, you're taking you took him last year. You tried to bring him along, but I mean, listen, again, garbage system, garbage coach. No, I'm sure that the teaching has been very minimal, So I mean, how do you even gauge a guy like Mims, and like based on what? Like that's the thing. So, to me, I think, Mims with a new system and a new coach, you got to give him a shot. There's a reason that Joe Douglas drafted him.
Mm-hmm.
So let's see what that reason is, because you weren't going to get it with Gase at the helm.
He had 2 pulled hamstrings, like both of his hamstrings he pulled like at the same time. So he didn't play, talk about COVID and the lack of practice time. He didn't practice the whole season. And he did flash a little bit when he played.
He did. I mean, absolutely. Yeah, and obviously he was really good in college and all that. And like you said, I like what you said there, Howard, because he did. This was a Joe Douglas draft pick, so this is somebody that I expect them to be able to build around. Larry, what about like the Crowder and?
Well, Jamison Crowder.
Are you comfortable having him, or is there that you think? You mentioned Juju, obviously, but
I mean, Crowder. I feel like Crowder's replaceable. I mean, you can talk about chemistry, but I mean, Sam hasn't really played. Crowder's the only body on offense with a warm heartbeat, so he makes a lot of money. He could be a cap casualty. I think he's making $10 million, and I don't know if Jamison Crowder is worth $10 million in where the Jets are right now. They're really just, the seed is just sprouted really when you think about this team and all the draft capital they have, and Jamison Crowder, maybe Joe Douglas made the mistake with Robbie Anderson by letting him go. Maybe he bases the decision to keep Crowder, but I don't know. I think Crowder will go somewhere else if the Jets cut him, and he could be replaceable, quite honestly. I mean, he fell into like 19 targets a game because there was no one else to throw to, it's like, he was the only one there running routes, Yeah.
No, and like you said, the other thing that you mentioned earlier that I really liked is you mentioned Chris Herndon blocking so much, and that he did show some receiving chops. I mean, Howard, do you feel like that's a guy that you're comfortable with as the starting tight end there, or do you hope they kind of look for another? It seems to be a really important piece of a lot of these offenses right now, is having that mismatch, the tight end position.
And talk about Chris Herndon massively misused these last 2 years. I mean, it's just, Gase has never featured the tight end in his system. Talk about it. I mean, how many in the fantasy football universe, 2 years ago was like, oh, Chris Herndon, he's going to be the guy, he's going to be the guy. And then he got hurt, and you were like, all right, I'll stash him on my bench because Chris Herndon, he's going to be the guy, And, and he never played. And then all of a sudden it was like, then he came back and he was completely underutilized as a pass catcher, primarily because the offensive line is terrible. And you needed the extra blocker, but overall, I mean, listen, he's a good pass catcher. He can run routes. I'm fine with Chris Herndon. Like if you're talking about who on the team is somebody you want to like just kind of keep there, Chris Herndon, I'm fine with. I'm fine with Denzel Mims, and I'm fine with Sam Darnold. Every other piece, offensively speaking, can go, and we'll take our shots elsewhere. Like I think that's really, there's nothing special about Perriman. There's nothing special about Crowder, Braxton Berrios. I was offended, like personally offended that we signed Josh Doxson. Like, really? Yeah. Nobody watch this dude when he was with Washington? Like that, and that just shows you. So Darnold, Mims, and Herndon, cash everybody else out and say, thank you so much. We're gonna look elsewhere.
Yeah, so you're just clean slate. I mean, just let's wipe it clean and wash our hands of everything, and let's have 51 new players on the roster or something like that. And I think it's smart. I mean, I think you're right. The one position that I think has been fantasy gold is these running backs that are in these Shanahan systems, right? So if we think about the running backs, then you look at the history, and who knows what they're going to do, because we don't really know. LaFleur hasn't had full control of an offense and all yet, but Shanahan really did value him, wanted to keep him around, wanted to keep him away from his brother. That was a big thing in the last offseason. But he does seem like he is going to be pretty good at utilizing these running backs. That would be the expectation, at least. And Kyle Shanahan really didn't make a lot of investments in running backs high in the draft or through free agency. It was a lot of these guys like a Ty Johnson who made a real impact on those teams. So, Larry, do you think like Ty Johnson showed a couple flashes last year? Do you think he could be good in this system?
Well, I heard somewhere, somebody or a podcast I was listening to compare the situation of the Jets and the new coaching system that's coming into like Ty Johnson being like a Myles Gaskin type of Band-Aid running back. We're still building. This is a rebuild year. That's very, very clear. We don't need to spend a first round draft pick on a running back because first of all, you shouldn't do that anyway. When you can find a James Robinson or these other guys that have just come out of the woodwork, or Myles Gaskin even. So listen. Ty Johnson, he averaged, I think it was like 4.7 yards a carry, I think last year. You have LaMichael Pirine. Yeah, he's a nice pass catching running back. I feel like you have a couple of pieces there that you can play around with while you're building up the rest of the team. And who knows? There's a handful of free agent running backs there, but and you could draft one. There isn't too many. There's 2 or 3 running backs that are coming out in Najee Harris, Travis Etienne, and Javonte Williams, and then there's just this whole mishmash of a bunch of other running backs. So they might maybe take one of those mishmash guys. Hopefully they don't spend. And again, they have the draft capital, so they could waste a top 100 pick on one of these earlier guys if it fits what they're doing. But I don't think, the running back position should be the last one you add when you're building a franchise, because that's like the final piece of the puzzle. Again, I smirk at the Giants drafting Saquon Barkley so early, but the guy hasn't played in like 2 seasons. But anyway,
right. Well, careful bringing up Saquon Barkley's injury history on Twitter. We'll get you a lot of trolls.
I'm telling you, focus it on that. Maybe it's because my wife is a Giants fan, and when the Giants win, I actually might get lucky on a Sunday night. So maybe that's kind of what it is.
Well, then you need a new quarterback then.
But no, just focus it against the Mets, man. Just focus it against the Mets. I'm telling you, you'll be much happier, Larry. Will. I'm telling you, doctor's orders right here. I'm writing it right here.
I don't know, man. I'm gonna need a heavy prescription you got. I don't know.
Howard, this would be the one year the Mets end up being better than the Yankees if he does that. So you better be
that was great. All right, is this show over now? Because I can't believe that I just heard somebody say that. You just want me to exit? Leave studio? Is that what
he would be the bad luck. You can't do that. No, you don't want to mess with it.
You know what? When you sent out the agenda for the one thing that caught my eye that I was just like, well, I don't even know what I'm going to say for this. Like one of the bright moments of 2020 or something. I was just like,
you notice I skipped over that. I skipped right over that.
I want to get into it because you want to know what the biggest moment was for the Ruggs touchdown. The Henry Ruggs touchdown was like,
that was so great.
I was like, this is actually happening. I did not think I you're a Jets fan, so there's no way we're getting Trevor Lawrence, and there's no way they're even the Ruggs touchdown was like, oh, this actually could happen. This is actually going to happen. And then they lose to they beat the Rams. Come on, in Los Angeles.
Can I tell you what that cashed out for me? Because in DFS, I actually used the Derek Carr, Darren Waller, Henry Ruggs stack.
Waller went nuts that game.
I went bonkers when that happened. When he caught that, I was like, yo, I'm stacking against my Jets every Sunday now.
That was a big moment. That was your biggest moment of 2020 as well, then, I guess. Huh?
That was absolutely
100%. I like it. That's just, that's gold. I love that. I'm glad you brought that back up.
That was easily the best moment of the season for the Jets. Not for Adam Gase though. Not for Greg Williams either.
You know what's even funnier though is that and I don't mean to name drop here, but so Bob Wischusen and I are in a fantasy football league together, right? And we talk on Bob and I talk on a regular basis, and he texted me after that Henry Ruggs touchdown, and he's like, only the loudest cheer in the world for that touchdown came from New Jersey. I mean, it's like, oh, it's too funny.
Because all Jets fans knew this wasn't going to happen for them. After that Ruggs touchdown, it was like, wow, this is actually going to happen. Yeah. Like, what was it, like week 15 or something? It was ridiculous.
Yeah, then he beats the Rams and he beat another playoff team too, right? There was another playoff team.
They beat the Browns. Everyone on the Browns came down with COVID like the night before the game. So,
right.
It took a little bit of the sting out, but whatever. Well, it is what it is.
Focus your hate here, Larry. Focus your hate on the Rams. Because, like all things Sean McVay, anything touching Jared Goff, like the fact that the Rams blew that game against the Jets, that was and everybody's like, oh, you must be so pissed at the Jets. I'm like, pissed at the Jets. Listen, these kids are playing with pride, right? They don't want to be an 0-16 team. We want them to be, but they don't want that horrible badge of dishonor on their resume. So they're playing all out. The fact that the Rams and McVay ended up losing that game, that was just the absolute atrocity.
That was when Goff wrote his ticket out to first class to Detroit, Rock City.
Yeah, I think you're right. That might have been the moment that broke that relationship right there. You might be right. Well, so the highlight of the season was a Raiders touchdown. How about the was there a low light? What would be the low light then? If it was another team such as a highlight, I mean, that's.
I was pretty upset after the Rams game.
Yeah,
kind of a low, because it was just like, really, it didn't make any sense. It was like, what? You're on the road in Los Angeles. They have no business winning that game.
Howard, go ahead.
What makes matters worse about that Rams game was the fact that, it was yet another internet GIF reminder of which, of showing the, the Rams as the butt fumble, as the Mark Sanchez with the butt fumble and how they couldn't get through. Like the continued reminder of Mark Sanchez and the butt fumble, that because of the way the season went, the fact that we endured that again over and over and over again. I mean, it's like, why don't you just tie me to a chair and make me watch Marino's fake spike?
Yeah.
Over and over again. Like, we haven't recovered from the fake spike from Marino in the 80s, for crying out loud. Right. So it's like, that's what, and it's so ironic that beating the Rams just showed what kind of a consistent loser franchise we are.
Doesn't make any sense. This is where my there with his smirk, all happy. It was just like so insulting.
This is where my Saints fandom is vibing with your Jets fandom, because if I have to watch that Minnesota Miracle play ever again, I just am gonna scream, because I wasn't even gonna bring up the butt fumble today. I wasn't gonna bring it up.
Have you been alive during a New Orleans Saints Super Bowl?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So right off the bat, you have no idea, no clue. What, Larry? I was born in December of 1970. Larry, when were you born?
November of 72.
There you go. We have never seen our Jets in the Super Bowl, let alone winning a Super Bowl in our life. So please, a little respect for we are Jets fans, lords of the idiots.
Yep.
100%. I'm there with you.
I mean,
the Minnesota Miracle.
Drew Brees has been quarterback for 20 years, throwing touchdowns, 50 touchdowns.
I deserve that. I appreciate that. I'll back off there. Now, I did do the Lions one. They might that one got deep and philosophical. So that was at least this one is kind of light and funny. That one got like deep and philosophical. They got a deep pain in Detroit.
Oh yeah, you're never gonna find a Jets fan that's like, well, super. That's gonna get all like super, because we're all just like, yeah, man, yep, we know, we we're just like, me and Howard, we've been vibing the whole show, man. We know we're on the same page.
Joe Namath sold his soul to the devil and said, "If you give me this Super Bowl, then I'll give you, whatever you want." And the devil was like, "Okay, Joe, but just so you know, for as long as you're on earth, the Jets will never win the Super Bowl again." And Joe was like, "Yeah, I'm good with that. Okay, cool. Yeah. Totally fine."
Dude, the greatest Jets quarterback, Brett Favre.
I was going to go Pat Ryan from the 80s, but yeah, Favre was really good.
No love for Chad Pennington? Come on.
Wasn't that much?
Chad Pennington. You're adorable, kid.
Yeah,
you're adorable.
Pennington guy. He didn't have a strong arm, and then he broke his shoulder. It was crazy. I don't know, man.
Yeah, I got nothing else. That's all my notes. That's
He was no Browning Nagel. That's all I can say.
I was going to ask you about Matt Breida, but I don't feel like we even need to talk about him anymore. So
who? Glenn Foley? Who?
Glenn Foley. Yes.
We didn't touch on like our favorite Jets moments, like
let's talk about it.
Of all time.
Yes.
Like I really had to think. Like I really was just like, what? There's really nothing I can hang my hat on. Favre threw 6 touchdowns, and I like hung his jersey up on my in the middle of my apartment wall.
That was a great game.
Some holes in my wall. In 98, they should have beat Denver. They would have won the Super Bowl that year.
Yep.
They would have beat
10-6 at halftime.
Yep, they were half away. They would have beat the Falcons too if they made it to the Super Bowl that year. I don't know, man. That's the Monday Night Miracle. These are like, just, I don't know, man. I have more fun at tailgates at Jets games than like the moments of Jets games that I can really, look back on and be like, wow, that was great. Although I did go to a Houston Texans. My wife got me when we first started dating tickets to see the Jets, and it was Mark Sanchez threw like San Antonio Holmes like end of overtime touchdown pass for the win. That was pretty amazing. But,
yeah, I think my happy memories for the Jets, really, it does. It dates back to the 80s, really, of like sitting there, like the rivalry against Miami and we weren't never expected to win against Miami and Dan Marino, and we turned out some unbelievable games. We also lost a ton of unbelievable games, but man, I tell you, like you were mentioning, when you said Wesley Walker and Al Toon, I was like, I got like little oogie inside there, right? I was like, oh, right, Wesley Walker, like watching him streak down the sidelines on a post route,
blind in one eye.
Yeah, right, blind in one eye. That was great. Like growing up and seeing those moments and having that. The fact that we've gotten older and more bitter.
Yes.
That's the testament to just really how poorly run this organization has been over time. It's really, credit all the fans who like stay loyal, because I got to tell you, I was sitting there on a show 2 years ago and just begging for another franchise to like, fandom to welcome me in, and like, Bill's Mafia welcomed me in, and I got all these Skull Vikings, messages on Twitter and stuff. But man, it's just you can't leave the Jets. The Jets are that old reliable.
You've been alive during a Saints Super Bowl, Howard. I'm just saying.
You understand, man. You understand.
The Ruggs TV Ruggs.
That's our highlight of 2020. A touchdown scored against.
That's beautiful. Howard, who's the best number 56 in New York Giants or New York history?
In New York history, it's Lance Bell. We all know it's Lance Bell.
No brainer.
Forget Lawrence Taylor.
LM.
Oh man, dude, it was just those late '80s teams were very entertaining. Oh, the early '80s were probably more entertaining than the late '80s.
You know, Howard talked about how his family dinners were very quiet on Sunday evenings, and growing up, we would go to my grandparents' house for Sunday dinner or whatever. We would watch the football game on the TV, and the Jets would lose, and I would just beat the crap out of my brother. That's what I would do, and I would just be so angry, and I don't know, maybe that's why he doesn't like me to this day. Who knows?
Toughened him up.
I don't know. My dad did the same thing to me, but listen, that's for another couch and another conversation.
Well, guys, that was fun. That's a good show. I appreciate the laughs. I appreciate putting me in my place. I appreciate that. And I have a lot more respect for the you gave me a Bane, like, hey, I was raised in the darkness, young man. I appreciate it. Howard, you're awesome. Where can everybody find you? And just if people want to support you over the offseason and the work that you're doing, how can they do that?
Follow me on Twitter at RotoBuzzGuy. Listen to me on SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio Monday through Friday, 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern. Find me all over the pages at both fantasyalarm.com and wageralarm.com. You can't miss me. I'm a big fat guy with a huge forehead, so you can't miss me.
Really appreciate you coming on. Awesome to hear from you. Larry, how about you? Where can people find you, and how can they support you over the course of the next few months as you work on the quote-unquote off-season?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at FFLarryMonkey, and I host the Dynasty Hot Sauce Pod, and you could follow that account on Twitter at Dynasty Hot Sauce. We have a Facebook page, Dynasty Hot Sauce Pod, and Instagram, all that good stuff. And my partner, Run DFF, Justin Rogers. We drop an episode once a week, and we get into some hot and spicy takes and all kinds of Dynasty football, fantasy football stuff. And yeah, man, give us a listen and let us know how you like it.
Howard, I figured it out. Here's where we're vibing. I'm a Braves fan. I hate the Mets too. That's it right there.
All right. I'll give you that. Give you that.
Have we convinced you to hate the Mets too? Like, is that something we can all agree on? The Mets just suck. We hate the Mets.
Yeah, well, you know what? We might have a reason to hate them now that they got this new billionaire owner that's going to beef up their team. So that's
right. Get out of here with that. Don't buy your championships, Mets. Come on, do it the hard way. All right. I appreciate it, guys. You guys are awesome. For Howard, for Larry, for Matt Donnelly with the Dynasty Vipers, giving us the opportunity to talk here. Hopefully you guys learned something, had some fun listening to these guys talk. It was awesome. I really appreciate you guys joining us. So for the Dynasty Vipers, for these guys, we definitely will see you at the next